episode 190.
Oh, 10 away.
At this rate, I don't think we'll make it to the end of the year. It'll go into 2020, I guess.
No way.
I don't know. You think we can do it?
Oh, we got it. By a mile.
We'll just pump out a few 5-minute episodes.
No, I think we're going to get it. No problem.
That'd be exciting.
I have a lot of confidence.
Yeah. 7 years coming up in April. I don't know if that's good. 190 episodes in 7 years. I think that's it should be a little bit better than that.
You know what? I'm sure there's people that would say that it's not impressive, but then if they try to do it, it's not as easy as you think, right?
Yeah. It's not. That is finding the time and so forth and scheduling, and that is a tough thing to do. And the time and commitment into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I, a lot of people start that stuff like a ball of fire. They think it's, they get excited about starting something, and what's hard about anything is to stay consistent and committed.
Yeah.
Everybody, tries to start something, or they got these great ideas, but the reality is doing it. It's the quote from Doug Collins.
Doug Collins? Wow.
Yeah, I got a Doug Collins quote. It's
wow. Let's hear it.
Longevity will ultimately determine your success.
All right. You should print that out and hang it up here in the studio. Wow. Doug Collins. All right.
Coming in hot.
He was a good coach.
Yeah, I think he did a good job with a lot of his teams. He, we're going to talk about your favorite guy for a second. But,
Phil Jackson?
Well, I mean, that Doug Collins was the coach of the Bulls before Phil Jackson.
Right.
So he was kind of he's the one that essentially Phil was his assistant, and Phil took over for Doug. And then that's when they kind of broke through and beat the Pistons and won the championship. I guess one of their first team practices with Phil Jackson, they called in Jordan to his office, and I guess he said to him, he's like, you're not going to run that equal opportunity offense, are you?
Yeah. He didn't want any part of that.
But then he convinced them that was the difference. Phil had to tell him, look,
there's better players on this team, sir.
Well, he convinced them that it's a team game.
Yeah.
And ultimately when you can win games against most of the teams by having one fantastic player, but when you start to get deep and you're starting to play teams that are good, they can focus in on your plan. And that not only happened to them, but it's happened to a lot of teams through the years. Mm-hmm. And when you're predictable, I think that's the difference, is when you're so predictable for the whole game in any of these sports. It doesn't even matter if it's basketball or football or, RC racing. You have to be multifaceted. There's a time where you see some guys that race RC, and you could see the track and you'd say, oh, I know this guy's going to suck. You know,
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, when I was out there, you could tell. Yeah.
Well, you just saw any track.
Right.
Oh, we're at an RC track. Oh, God, he's gonna suck at this.
Oh, of course. Well, except my local track, though, dude.
Yeah, that's right. You cleaned up there.
Well, I was, yeah. What do you call that? Local track star?
Local.
I don't know what you guys call that today, but.
Yeah, what do we call it? Home track hero.
Home track hero. Okay, that's what I was. Yeah. It was always me, Mikey Soodle, Brian Roeder. Brian Roeder, who's still out there today, going around the circuit. So he got really good by visiting other tracks, whereas I went to other tracks and I just took a shit. I don't know what it was. Couldn't adjust, I guess. I think that's what it was. I could not go out there and just make my car work on a different track.
You know what I remember from my early days of racing is, at first in those days, you didn't, realize that there was other tracks. I went to my first track at Gore in Orlando. It was called Greater Orlando Auto Racers, and I just thought that was the only place there was. Like, I had no idea there was other tracks, and it was a good track. But I remember people saying, well, so-and-so just got back from the Georgia State Championships. And you're just like,
yeah, what?
Whoa,
yeah, what's
Georgia.
That about?
Whoa, Georgia State's. And they're like, yeah, there's a big race in Tampa. You're like, Tampa? They're like, there's another track?
Absolutely. It's hard to envision that, but yeah, for you young listeners out there, we had no idea, really.
Yeah, so
magazine.
I remember I remember looking at it, going to Tampa and running, and it was a different kind of track, the way they prepped the surface, and kind of a different mentality, down there. And I remember going the first time and just being so intimidated of that first. And I remember I didn't really struggle that bad the first time, but it just definitely wasn't the same. And I want to say that I had a stock truck, a mod truck, and then I had a borrowed stock buggy that I would run. And I remember not doing very well with the buggy. I always did okay in truck, but then it was like, I kind of felt like when I went there that I didn't do as well, and I was like, okay, I need to come here and run more, because I need to be able, I felt pretty comfortable in Orlando. Not that I was the best or anything there at that time, but I was like, man, if I went to Tampa, I could run, and I feel like that's kind of a weakness, so I need to kind of work on that. So started going there more, got comfortable, and that made a big difference. And because then I felt like I could bounce between those two tracks, and it was a much more, you got much more confident that way. Then you find another track, then you go there, and then it became easier and easier to kind of move around and try different things. And then to me that became kind of fun, to kind of travel around and try these different tracks.
Yeah. Oh, what happened?
They just closed the door.
Oh.
You okay now?
I'm fine, sir.
Okay. Yeah, so that was fun, kind of traveling around, trying the different tracks, and it's really a part that it's hard to recreate there's just, if you race something else, like if I did a little bit of monster truck racing or race something else where people don't know you, or it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I was like in my own little bubble over here, so I didn't really, know what was going on the outside, like outside of my little bubble. And then I visited my first, I guess my first track that I went to was Wagon Hill. Back when now it wasn't like the location that they were at in the 96 Nats, it was their very first location, which was just like at some farm, basically. And everybody was pitting in the barn and outside the barn and stuff, and it was pretty cool. So I believe that was my first time leaving Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. And because I thought it was good, so I was like, man, I'm good here, like I should be able to do. Nah, I got smoked. Got smoked. And plus, I was nervous, man. So
yeah,
I mean, you show up to this track and all of a sudden you're seeing all these people there, and you're like, holy shit, this is a lot different than home. Back home maybe there was 20, 30 racers. You get there and there's 50 plus, and you're like, oh my god, and people you don't know, and it was crazy. And I was just nervous, so.
Yeah, I remember that too. Travel around. I remember first time I went to California, I stayed with J.D. Beckwith in Northern California and we went to his local track, which is called Hobby Haven. And I remember getting there and I was just so intimidated. But when I started racing, I did pretty well. I wasn't, I remember, I think I ran a club race in modified, and I think I won. JD didn't race. JD Beckwith didn't race, but he practiced and then he kind of packed up and just hung out or something. But he was kind of like a superstar at that time, and I just wanted to race as much as possible. And I want to say that I think that I won, but I brought these really weird looking for me, these weird looking bodies, because usually I had blue and yellow, orange and white or whatever on all my cars. And then for some reason I ran a green and black body with stripes. And I called it kind of like my Ruffy Rios paint job, because there's a racer in Orlando. He kind of had a green car. So I think I ran those one or two races, but I have some photos at home. They're kind of funny. But it's, I remember going there, and I remember kind of doing pretty well, but being really nervous about it. And then from there, the kind of built up. I felt I could kind of go to these different tracks, and I kind of had a chance to do something, and it just all happened so fast. When you think about back then, when you were that age and you'd tell somebody, oh, it's going to be a year. You're like, a year? Oh.
Yeah.
And now it's like a year is just we're already in April. We just turned 2019. We're already in April.
It's crazy, man.
We're just flies by.
And you guys have so many races now. It's unreal.
Yeah, between our Super Cup stuff here in Florida and then our National Series stuff, we have a lot of events. But
can't imagine starting out today.
Well, it's.
Is it easier? I guess it's easier because of equipment and stuff. But
the issue, the thing that I see that kind of is unfortunate now is people kind of spread a lot of bad information, because information's so readily available now. If you jump on social media or whatever, people they believe the strangest things. And I think that's a pretty intimidating factor for people now because they feel like they know too much. So they get all this weird information or bad information from people, and then they're kind of tainted before they even start. Oh, well, I can't go there because I don't have the right car or the right setup for that track. And you're just like, dude, just go. Like,
Okay.
It's like for you, it doesn't matter. Like, for somebody, it's like there is no expectation for you. You've never won anything. You've never done anything.
Oh, man.
I'm not saying you, but anybody.
No, I'm saying. Sounds harsh.
But that's how it is. Like, some people act like they're a 2-3-time world champion. Oh, I can't go there. I don't have the correct equipment.
Yeah, you should be able to go into that with,
It's like, it's like, well, you've never done anything. There's no expectation. Nobody really.
Yeah, nothing to lose.
You have nothing to lose. It's like.
That's true.
So it's like it shouldn't matter. You should just go experience it, then make the adjustments before ruling it out. I see a lot of people do that now, is they kind of rule it out because they read somewhere or somebody tells them, oh, you can't even go do that unless you have this, or this, and they believe that. And it takes that first. It kind of limits their first step.
Right.
So they would rather sit at home and bench race and talk on the internet than they would of actually trying it, because they don't want to go there and have a result that's not up to their standard, which they have no standard. You know what I mean? Like they haven't set that standard yet. It's one thing if you're somebody that has raced a lot and like you're a Mayfield or something, and you can't go to the J Concepts carpet race with a rear motor car, because it's like,
yeah,
but
that wouldn't work out too well. Or it wouldn't be a good thing.
The funny part is he would still do pretty well.
Oh yeah, he would.
Yeah, I think thinking back, that was a good thing about those days, is you could just somebody said there was somebody said if there was a track somewhere, you're like, okay, I'm going.
Yeah.
You bring what you got, you make some educated guesses, and you just go and experience it, and whatever happens. Then you go, oh, next time I go back, I'm going to do this.
You would show up and be like, what tires you guys running? You know what I mean? You'd run to the shop and buy them quick. You know what I mean? Or you go to the hobby shop and you say, hey, what works here? And that's what you would buy then,
Or you learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Which, that's, I think a big part of it is, people do need, sometimes you learn the hard way, I think, and that's where you learn your stuff. Because you say, hey, for me, I would, you would go to these tracks, or you'd go to Georgia or whatever, and you come back and you say, well, I didn't really bring everything that I wanted. Like I should have brought this or that, or I should have had this tire. So next time I go back, I'll make sure I have that. So now you're learning something. Now what I notice is people just try to ask, hey, I'm going to so-and-so. What do I need? It's like, well, you're kind of the guy that should know. Like you're the racer, you're sponsored. You know what I mean? Like people ask me stuff like that. It's like, hey, what should I bring? I'm like, hey. It's like when I go, who do I ask? You know what I mean? Like I have to.
That's true.
Like that's part of people are supposed to experience some things, look into it, and make some educated guesses. Yeah, so like the other day, Spencer emails me, and not that this is the same example, I mean, but he's like, hey, I'm going to the world's warm-up for 10 scale, and I need front tires because front tires are open. So I'm like, okay, I start thinking, all all right, you have to run this rear tire, and usually with that rear tire, these are the front tires. Normally that kind of go with it, and like so, I'm kind of already mentally making the list,
Right.
of what we should send him, just based off of my own experience. And if you had to ask him, like when I was talking to him on the phone about it, he's like, yeah, I think we should probably have this, that. He already had kind of some ideas, but sometimes people don't have any idea. It's like you just got to learn some of that stuff. But yeah, that's that intimidation factor. People afraid to not have the right thing. People just scared.
Well, today, though, it's so much easier to get all that info than it was back then. I mean,
but yeah, so they get all the info.
Okay.
Then they still make an excuse not to do it. That's the part that bothers me.
Gotcha.
Because it's like, it's like you have all the info. Now you're using the info as an excuse.
Strange.
Yeah. It's kind of tough these days because with all the carpet and AstroTurf racing we have now, there is tremendous differences between the cars people run. So, if you're getting dialed in for turf or you're getting dialed in for carpet and you try to go run at a dirt track, you're going to struggle a little bit. But I think, to me, that's kind of part of what makes it cool is like making the adjustment and having some success. I actually watched a pretty cool. Spencer's actually calling me right now.
Oh.
No, it's okay. Spencer will listen to this podcast, and I'll tell him. Take a message. I was watching a video today on YouTube that I bumped into that I'd never watched before. Was back when Associated came out with the RC10 GT, it came with a video, like how to tune, kind of not so much how to build the truck, but more about the engine, like how to tune an engine, because they knew that a lot of electric guys were going to get that truck and really not know anything about nitro, which I was one of those guys. Not that I'm some nitro expert now, but when I got that truck, I want to say that I said before that it shipped from Associated and it showed up at my house on Christmas, just the way it turned out. And I stayed up all night building it. But, I got an engine and, you get fuel and a glow igniter and a starter box, and you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then, I watched the video that came with the truck, and of course you're so into it because it's like no RC cars came with videos back then, right?
Right.
So you just, you're just watching it over and over again, checking it out, and, I put it together and I raced it the next weekend just based off of watching that video. And
wow.
And so then with Losi, so that truck came out in like 93, I think. And Losi, I think, were under some pressure from the distributor that they didn't have a nitro truck. And they made a few prototypes, several prototypes, I think. One version, kind of fit on one of their current trucks at the time. Then they made another version.
Let's in this.
Yeah, that's the Associated video. But what I'm getting to is today I bumped into the one that Losi made.
Oh, okay.
So when 2 years later they released a gas truck, they released a gas truck called the GTX, and it was only available through Horizon distributors. So it was like, so this was in 1995. They had an exclusive with Horizon to sell this GTX gas truck, and it was based off their LXT electric truck. So they did when I saw it was a 34-minute video, and it was actually a little, I'm sure at the time, maybe a little more professionally put together video than the Associated one. Although it's like they're not very good videos either way. But everyone has a lot of sound problems back then, and even today. We're always trying to get the sound right, and you could tell it was a big problem back then, even more because you're probably videoing with a camcorder, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
weighs
this
like
video,
1,000 pounds.
This video is put together where there's a lot of action of them driving the truck at the ranch. Then they do an interview with Gil O.C. Jr. talking about what they designed on the truck, and they didn't really say it to the point, but they were trying to say, hey, we made this part better than the Associated, and like they're trying to, they were just trying to show the high points of the truck.
Those guys are always at war with each other.
And I think they explained some of the design stuff with Junior, and it's funny because Junior's so young. I don't know how old he is in the video, but
oh my god, yeah,
he looks
I'm watching it now.
Yeah, he's maybe in his early 30s, I would say. He's got gray hair in the video a little bit, but he's very young.
He does. Let's go to the comment section, see what that's like.
Yeah, that's the hot thing. But so then they go through the Gil O.C. Jr. thing. Then they go through, after that, they talk to Jack Johnson, which he was kind of he was fading at that point as their top driver, but had always been, it was Junior, then Jack Johnson was the man, and Kyle Reed. Then it went to Kinmold. But anyway, they talk to Jack in the video. He gives some pointers and, hey, you're going to be out here, he's basically saying, hey, this thing will last 8 minutes on a tank of gas, and if you run 4 sessions, you're out on the track for, a long time, so you better work on it. Yeah. Your screws are going to fall off, and, it's like you got to work on this thing. So it was kind of nice. They had a little cameo from Pops at the end, kind of just telling everybody, thanks for buying it, and then they talked about what fuel to get and, glow igniter. And it was actually a really nice video.
Yeah, it looks good.
And I'm sure at the time it worked really well. They do the same thing as Associated in their video where they show you what it's like on the street to kind of drive the truck and tune the engine and how to break it in, which is good. But what was interesting is what kind of really stuck out to me about that video was they were really doing this for beginners and people that had never done the stuff before, and giving a lot of tips, and you don't see that at all anymore. Like for any of the Associated cars or TLR stuff, they're not really advertising or marketing the car at all to people that are just starting. It's all targeted to people that have already done it. So, it's like you kind of look at a lot of this stuff and you're like, well, you can kind of see why the success they were having in those days and how it's transitioned to you're just selling it to people that you're assuming are already experts.
Yeah.
And back then they were assuming they were novices. And that's a pretty big deal. And, now you have the Traxxases who they assume everyone's a novice because that's who they're selling to, right? Or beginners or entry level. But But now it's like you buy a B6 or you buy a TLR buggy, they're just like, oh yeah, you can adjust the ball stud washers and change your roll center, and it's like you're talking to the experts. You're giving them expert information.
Yeah.
Back in these days, they're telling you, how to get it going. There's like, oh, it has an engine. Oh, it has a clutch. Oh, they're like telling you the basic information, which I think is pretty cool. So it's like, I hear this, people talk about all the time. It's like, how can we get new people to do this? And it's like, well, we're selling, now we're selling a car to somebody based on the fact they've already done it,
yep.
Not based on the fact that they have never done it.
God damn.
So we've moved down this path of just assuming that everybody has already done it. And then if you are someone new, you get a B6, they assume you know it all, but you do get it together, and you get this thing, you get this car running. Then they're jumping on Facebook, and that's when they're asking these questions, right? And they're like, my car spins out and it does this or it does that, and people are giving these technical answers, and oh, well, that's because you're on this track. You're gonna have to have a different setup if you go to this track. So it's like, and probably the reality is they're just not very good yet, so they don't know the limitations of the car. It's like they just need to make sure that the car is fundamentally correct, and then keep driving.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's really kind of weird. I was definitely like watching that video earlier, and I was like, man, these guys were in the driver's seat back then. They were the Traxxases. They were all these people back then, and they've let all that go. They've let all it go to make another generation vehicle to win a race, assuming people already have that experience, not assuming that you've had no experience. It's kind of, and they've let Traxxas take over for the people that don't have experience.
Yeah. Who's laughing all the way to the bank?
Exactly. So yeah, it was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're actually, if you watch that video later, you will like. I liked watching it.
Oh, I love that old stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have it queued up, ready to rock. So I'll check that out tonight. I'll post the link in the show notes.
Then we got. I really should watch the Associated one. You know what's funny is the Associated video appears to be 35 minutes, and the Losi one's 34 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. Like, they were right on top of each other in terms of what they were. The part I remember about the Associated GT video was the surroundings stuck out to me so much because I spent, at least for somebody from Florida, I spent a decent amount of time there. So they're right in front of the building at Associated doing this video, and Gene is actually filming, and you can hear Gene that like he gets excited when the tuning turns out as they wanted it to be.
Right.
So you can hear him like, oh, that was perfect, like, because they said, all right, now if you richen it up too much, it's going to do this. If you lean it out too much, it's going to do this. And then they would punch the truck and drive, and it would do what they wanted it to do. And you could tell he was excited. That was like, all right, that's a perfect take. Like, we got it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Gene was definitely kind of ahead of his time with his videos, because
sure was.
He used to go to the races just to video. And it's a little different from the way we do our stuff today, because we go and we do more of a coverage standpoint, where it's like we end up videoing races even if our guy doesn't win. Whereas when Gene was doing these, he did it entirely from his team's perspective. So, like he would put it together. When he put it together, it was based off of, their guys winning a race. Of course, there was times he had to show if they didn't win, but it's like, the majority of the footage, is based around their team, which is cool.
Yeah.
It's like a diary in a way.
And then Trinity with the Evolution, they had the Joel Johnson on the tape.
I've never watched that one. I'd kind of like to see that.
Yeah, let's see if that's on YouTube.
YouTube's so great.
It is.
What I got into watching the other day was, I don't know how. I think it's because I went to the, that Metallica concert a couple weeks back.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And, so I was obviously listening or watching some Metallica stuff on YouTube, and then a video came up that said, what makes this song great? And it was made by, the guy's name is Rick Beato. He has a YouTube channel where he talks about everything music. So I don't really know jack about music.
Jason was doing research, finding out who this group was before he went.
I'm like, who is this? All right. There's a song called Enter Sandman. So that's what's funny is this guy does a review essentially on that song, and this guy is like a producer, and he's been around music forever, and he's just like technically just amazing with the music. So he has the ability to break these songs down to where it's like, okay, here's the guitar track, here's the the bass, here's the drums, here's the vocals. So he can break it all down, and he can explain like how they're playing this stuff and what it sounds like, isolated. So he can isolate the drums. So he shows you all this in the video, and like I've been like hooked on that, watching these for all these different songs he does. It's just been really cool because I'd never, I'm not like a musician but I like listening to his details, and it's amazing. He has amazing detail for these songs, and being able to show you how it was played and how it was put together. And he's like, stopping he'll stop it and say, all right, you hear that? And he'll say that this happened, that happened, and he's really good at telling you that the days of, I guess there's a program called Pro Tools,
okay,
that they put music together with now. So if you record a session and you like it, it's like, hey, we do the there's the vocal section or the chorus or whatever, and you want to repeat that part later on in the song, they can just drag and drop it.
Wow.
You can, so they can do all these things with this. But that didn't start till like 2000, I guess is what he's saying. Like in the year 2000 is where these programs became available, where you could do all this kind of work to edit and put together music. And so he's doing these old songs like from the 70s and 80s, and he has to stop every now and then. He goes, and now remember, he goes, this is all, he's like, he'll isolate the vocals and say, this was all recorded in one take. He's like, so you can hear the singing part, and it's it's all in one take, and you can say, yeah, and he's showing you that, and he's like, this was before Pro Tools, and before you could do this, and before you could do that, and he's like, these are performances. Like, he's like, this is just amazing stuff, and so it's cool. Yeah, you'll be into it too. Like, check out the first one I saw was what makes this song great, and just type Metallica, and then you'll see the first one I saw, which is, so now you got two things to watch.
Okay.
Yeah. It's cool. Like, it's just tremendous amounts of detail and information. And
yeah, that's Rick Beato, right?
Beato.
Yeah. Beato?
Yeah.
Rick Beato. Beato.
Yep.
On YouTube. Subscribe. Tell him
I got the
podcast. Wow, he has almost 1 million subscribers. Jeez.
Yeah, so you can tell that it's pretty good stuff. You know what's amazing about this video? I'm watching the GT one right now, the RC10 GT associated video. And I haven't watched this in forever, and I used all these techniques. Like, basically, Curtis has the engine out on a table. They got all the parts of how to assemble, the air filter and put everything together on the vehicle. You have to oil the pre-filter. You have to put a tie wrap on the bottom, and he's showing you how to set the linkage, which was so big. I can't believe they didn't do this in the Losi video, setting the linkage. That was important.
Oh, they didn't do that?
No, they didn't, and not that I remember. They didn't show you how to set the linkage. That's what was good about this video, is it shows you. Actually, they got a zoom up of the truck here, and you can actually see it has a machined transmission case, not a molded transmission case.
What minute mark are you at, sir?
I am at 7:19.
Okay.
Yeah, they got a zoom up here at the top. They got an engine in the car. He's telling you how to set the electrical. This is where I learned too. When you touch the screwdriver against the metal piece, the truck would glitch back then.
Oh.
When you had the radio turned on and you touched with your screwdriver, you touched that.
Right.
That's the brake lever going back. If you touch that, that truck would glitch. I don't remember why exactly it did that, but yeah. But if you look at the transmission case here, which is there's a wire running over the top of it. That's a machine. That's a machine transmission case.
Oh.
So they filmed this. They filmed this before the truck was done, which is smart.
Right.
Because they're like, we got to get this video done. We got to get it processing while this truck is finishing. So here he's opening up the carburetor. I'm at 824 right now. Yep. He's showing you that you open up the carburetor wide open, and you don't want it to go past. So he's telling you to set the endpoints here on your radio, so the carburetor only goes full throttle and not past, and it extend the arm, and then go back to idle, and then you set the brakes. Yeah, I remember this is how I did it. I set my stuff up just like this, and I brought it out to the track, and it freaking ran. And I was like totally amazed. I was like, I can't believe this works.
Yeah, crazy.
And I won with it.
Yeah.
Never even did it before. He's showing you how to how much restriction there is. Then you pull the throttle and then it freewheels. Because you got a little bit of brakes on to hold the truck still. So then you pull the throttle and the brakes. So now he's going to show that you start to push the brakes and it.
Oh, this is going to be fun to watch later. I got that and the music. I see this music video. The breakdown of the music. He has a whiteboard and everything. This is exciting stuff.
Oh wow, this is an edit. I've never seen this part. So like they must have edited in a different truck here.
What minute mark you at?
It was about 10:02. They were showing a different generation truck. but now they're kind of back to the original video. Like for a split second, they showed a completely different vehicle. So there must have been they redid the video many years later.
I think they just recommended a J Concepts body for this. That's weird, man. What the heck?
He's telling them to. Now he's explaining how you open up the window so you get airflow through the engine head.
Ah.
They cut out the whole front windshield in this video, but we only used to cut off the left. We used to cut out the left side only, where the engine head was. But he's got the whole window cut out on the driver's side. He's got a cutout for the stinger.
Maybe you want to do that if it's really hot outside. The whole window.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, all this stuff still applies because we were at a race recently where Mayfield was trying to get the most power he could out of his truggy and get it to run cool, and he was cut. He's like, just cut out all the windows. So I cut out the left side, cut out the right side, cut out the windshield. He's like, I don't even know this is legal. Then he goes and looks at the Testman's truck. He's like, if Ty's is cut out, I'm cutting mine out.
Yeah, that doesn't make it legal, but yeah.
Yeah, he's just like, because he goes, I know. He's like, if mine's cut out and theirs not,
we're good. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we got fading into Cliff out here on the street. Cliff's this is probably 93, so he was probably 35 here. Jeez. It's funny how people, when you get older, you don't move as fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I do know what you mean. I feel it.
Like you watch these videos. What was the meme that was on the other day where it was something like, I remember when I was a kid seeing professional athletes retire at 30, and I was like, wow, they're so young.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He's like, now I get out of bed, and I'm like, oh, now I understand, or something.
Did you see Adam Gase's quote about Tom Brady still playing?
No.
That was good. Adam Gase, the head coach of the New York Jets now.
It's funny, Cliff.
They asked Gase about Brady still playing, and Gase says, they asked him, when do you think Brady will retire? And he says, I don't know. Gase said, when I wake up, I feel like shit, and he's older than me.
Yeah, now that you say that, I did see that quote.
Yeah, that was really good.
They're zoomed in here, showing you the McDaniel starter or glow igniter. That's the same one I bought.
Oh, that's interesting.
Cliff's got his Reeboks, all white Reeboks.
I see that.
That was his shoe, man.
Well, at least it wasn't Nike, Jordans or something.
Yeah, he loved those things.
Or if he still wears them. I'd be interested. We should call him up and ask him.
He's got that car stand. I remember seeing those. I never had. Yeah, it's J Concept's car stand.
Where are you at here now?
I am at 14, 18, 20.
Yeah.
So they're going to fire this truck up, kind of show you what's going on, but explain the fuel tank to you, how the...
Do they explain that's where the fuel goes?
Well, they're explaining that how the pipe is pressurizing the tank.
Oh, okay.
There's that tube that's sticking into to the pipe, and that's pressurizing the tank. And I don't know why they call it this, but these gas tanks are called chicken hopper style fuel tank.
Oh, chicken hopper.
Chicken hopper, and it's something to the effect of where the fuel pickup is inside the tank, and then that it's pressurized. And for some reason they call it chicken hopper. So now we got Curtis firing the thing up. Cliff left-handing the CS2P radio. It's like Cliff had a pit guy on the street.
I wanted that radio so bad back then.
Yeah, the CS, man, that was it.
A chicken hopper tank uses a demand and feed principle.
There you go.
And is small. I don't know if this is true with RC, but I just Googled chicken hopper gas tank.
Yeah.
And the engine draws fuel from the small tank, drawing the fuel level down until the vent to the large tank is uncovered.
I think that some of the principles there is applying to the RC tank, but I don't know that it's...
Yeah, probably not the same.
Yeah.
Well, watch along, folks. We are at the we're at the 1650 mark. Well, that's where I'm at. So.
Yeah, 1633 is where I'm at. But yeah, so maybe we'll check out some of those questions we had. We've had quite a few races since our last podcast. When was our last one?
A few months ago. All right, Jason, what are your thoughts on what are your thoughts on the tire prep that is necessary to compete in 10 scale off-road? And that's from our good friend Rob Sturgill out there in Colorado.
It's a good question.
That's a damn good question, Rob. You know what? I'm gonna throw it to Jason to answer it for you.
I don't know what kind of answer would you like?
Yeah.
There is two ways to look at this. I think I've tried to.
There's a lot of tire prep involved now.
Well, to be honest, there is always tire prep.
Right.
It doesn't matter when you raced. It doesn't matter where you race. There's tire prep.
But
we just ran our.
It's gotten really a lot worse here, or something, from what.
Well, yeah, I'll explain. But some people are taking it a little too far. But we've talked about this on a couple shows where a couple of years ago the Testmans kind of took it to a level that was really just kind of a pain. And then since then, some things, depending on the surface, you have to do these things at the top level to compete. But the tires dominate these cars and all the cars. So if you're allowed, anytime you're allowed to work on the tires, there's always going to be tire prep. So it's just what kind are you doing? I mean, we just ran a carpet race where tires are pretty simple from a additive standpoint. There is no additive, we don't use it. But there's the tire games there are, do you run them new? Do you run them used? How many runs do you go before they're not really fast anymore? Those are all the things we go through on that side of it. What Rob's referring to is where racing now is essentially when you race on dirt indoors, your tires are you're running them so low of tread that they're almost slicks, or at a lot of tracks you're just you're all the way on slicks, and that's the past couple of years we've been out on the dirt indoor track racing tour. That's essentially where we are. We're either at very, very low treaded tires, or you're on a outright slick tire. And when you get to those levels, guys, then it's about, you can try different tire sauce. But that's where people sometimes get a little lost, because with tire sauce, we've used liquid wrench for years, and that's been, probably the most preferred tire sauce is the liquid wrench. And they just hit that part in the video where Gene gets excited because the truck flamed out because they changed the setting just like he wanted. So the tire sauce is one of them. What kind? But I'd say over 75% of the time we're still using liquid wrench. And then the other times we're using there's FDJ sauce, which is Frank Denny's stuff. So between those couple items, or those couple sauces, we're kind of using those all the time. So, but besides that, you can do, now people are doing a lot of heating of tires. So it started off where the Testmans were taking their tires into the parking lot in the summer, and they put them in the rental van with the heat on, and they would just let the tires sit in the rental van with the heat on in the van just to try to warm them up, because the tires they were using they worked good when they were heated and sauced, so they'd put them in the tire bags and let them heat up. And then it kind of transitioned to where if it was hot outside, you could put them out in the sun and just let them heat up. Then it got to where you could heat them up in the pits with either like a heat gun, or you could run them on the drill to heat them up. Just all kinds of different tactics, I guess you could say. Recently we ran at Hobby Action. We run slicks there. And Much More had some tire warmers. So Mayfield, Cavallari, Spencer, a lot of the guys had the Much More tire warmers for off-road, which, you commented on that because you said, hey, I remember when we had these on Trinity.
Yeah. Yep.
You're like, yeah, we sold these for touring car on Trinity, which it's the same thing. It's just you're heating the tires. You put sauce on them, and then you put the warmers on them, and you get them warm. And what's interesting is about all the tire games is there's a lot of like voodoo, or a lot of like you can think that it mattered because it's just a psychological thing. I mean, I remember we were at the Desert Classic and Mayfield ran a race or a practice session where he went out with his car. He did all the things that he needed to do with his tires, and he went out and he's like, man, I don't like the way it feels. I'm just going to charge it again and go right back out and run again. So he did, and then he's like, yeah, my car's dialed again. He's like, I didn't heat him up. He goes, so there's some kind of head games with yourself with all that stuff too. But there are truly some benefits, but I think it's important to realize when there is a benefit or not. You're not just going through all these steps because you see somebody else doing it. You've actually tried it, and you know that you have to do it, right?
Right. Correct.
So I think what Rob's talking about is that's kind of what he's referring to is, these type of things, the heating and this sanding of the tires. And I think in general you can still go to OCRC. You can mount up, whatever the hot tire is. You can go out and drive about 3 or 4 times on the track, and using the sauce that everybody recommends, and buy your, 3rd, 4th battery pack, the tires are broken in and ready to go. But what guys have done over time is they don't want to wait 3 or 4 times to drive them. They will try to sand the tires on a drill so they don't have to break them in on the track, and they're good like on the first run. But so there is a lot of games, but I think the important thing is you can minimize a lot of those steps by just, kind of concentrating on what really matters and what really doesn't. But this is another thing like we talked about earlier in the show, where people know a lot of information because they see it on the internet, or they see a photo and it turns them on or off. Like they saw photos of Cavallari's or Mayfield's car with tire warmers at Hobby Action, and they're just like, oh, this is bull crap, this is stupid, and what's happened to my off-road racing? And but they also don't remember, they weren't there for the whole race, and hear Mayfield say, well, I don't know if it really matters if I heat him up or not. So it's like they weren't really around for that. They just see the pictures and they say, oh, I don't want to do that. But what I've noticed is also a lot of people that make comments on the internet, they haven't raced for like 15 years anyway. So it's like, I tell people all the time, I'm like, I was mounting new tires to go drive in a qualifier in 1993. You know what I mean? So it's like we're not using any, we're still using, if you're running a big race and you want to do well, and a track requires new tires, you run new tires. The biggest thing now is these days you can run old tires. It's actually probably less expensive at times. So,
man, for some reason, I think I remember we ended up marketing those tire warmers under the Kinwald brand eventually.
Maybe
late 90s, early 2000s. Did we use them in off-road?
There was probably a time where I'm sure he tried it.
Yeah.
There was a real, I would say 1999 and 2000 was kind of the nosedive of 10-scale off-road racing. And really, what had happened is we did a lot of racing on slicks. And it really kind of killed it. Touring car was coming out. It was popular. And 8-scale became popular all at the same time. And it kind of really hurt 10-scale off-road. Kind of stunted it. And it took a while. It came to about 2005, 2006. And then 10-scale off-road kind of started coming back again. A lot better. Right around when brushless came around. Yeah. But now we're at that point again where the cars have gone really, technical. The surfaces are difficult again, running slick tires or we're running carpet. And so I think that we're in a little bit of a stagnant area in 10-scale off-road right now because of all that. But like we talked about earlier in the show, there's a lot of it has to do with, how we market these things now and how we're building it. We just talked about watching a video telling you how to do it. Came with the kit, how to be a novice and how to get good or how to prepare your stuff. And now we just assume everybody knows everything. So, yeah, that makes it kind of rough. But yeah, in general, I think the tire stuff, you can simplify it. There's some stuff that is a little out of control about it, a little bit. It's too deep, especially at these indoor dirt tracks, I think is probably the most difficult to manage. Actually, they go into a video here of a race. I'm actually in this race.
Oh.
Yeah, they must have at some point remade this video, putting in some more current footage and kind of showing the trucks in action a little bit.
Where am I at now? What video is this?
I'm still in the GT one.
Oh.
29 minutes, 50 seconds. It's showing a gas truck race at the Ranch Pit Shop. Mark Pavitas is in the lead. Kinwald's in second. I just happen to know this because apparently I was in this race.
Wonder who's pitting for you.
Well, here comes Mark for a pit stop, and Curtis is pitting him. I actually think that, wow, that was a pretty... These guys are so, the trucks look so messy. We got Mark, Kinwald, and Richard Saxton battling. God, that truck looks like a mess.
Things look funny from back then.
These things worked really well.
So we're never going to see this class back, huh?
I don't think so.
Man, it's crazy. Crazy to think about that.
It's like what's amazing is how small this track looks now in the video. So I was saying about the tire stuff is I think there's a couple different ways to look at it. Like when I talk to Spencer about all this stuff, he just completely disagrees with me.
Does he?
He thinks that he believes that he wants to do the stuff. He says it's just a part of racing. He feels like to him that if you want to be fast and you want to be good at racing, then you have to do what it takes to be a racer. And he's like, sure, it requires work. You have to do things, but he's like you're racing. That's the way he looks at it.
Yeah.
And he's an age range kid that would be typically getting bashed on because he doesn't want to do the work, right? He's the millennial or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, you'd figure he'd say screw it.
Yeah, he's the kind of, you would think he's the age where he wouldn't want to do the work, but he wants to do the work.
Well, he's a Patriot fan. No days off, man.
And there's also like Jackson Brunson and these other guys that,
right.
We work with, AJ Marasco works with us, and there's Brad. Brad works here with us, and they're all the same age. And then there's Lee Setzer, he's a Florida guy, and Damon Borkowitz. We got all these guys they're almost all similar age, and they work hard. They like RC. They like to do the work. And so sometimes I think, maybe I'm the one that needs to adjust how I think about some of these things, and maybe some of the other people need to adjust the way they think about some of the things. And say, if you're going to use tire warmers, you use tire warmers. And that's just the way it is. If you want to race something, you have to be prepared to do the work.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way that's the way Spencer feels about it. I tend to agree to a certain extent that I know that that's not the normal. So I don't want to be negative, but I realize there's a lot of people that feel like, I know already going into it, there's going to be people that they're going to use that as an excuse. Let's see, was I in this race? They're coming off the driver's stand. There's Billy Easton, there's the King, Austin Dvorak, Mark Pavidis.
This is at the 33:41 mark. I'm at
Ron Rossetti. Yeah, talk over their winning race strategy. I've never seen this before.
I love going back in time. Oh, I didn't see you come down off the stand.
Yeah, I know. That's my truck in the pits right there. Or no?
Richard Saxton getting interviewed here.
Yeah, so I think there's sort of a balance there. I do agree that there's some things that are a little, probably a little too difficult, and they're going to deter some people from wanting to put in the effort. But I do think there is a side to a lot of these things where people have to be prepared to do the work that is necessary, because it's not, you have to work hard at it. So that's something you got to get used to right away. If you're going to race anything, it's going to require a certain amount of effort. It's hard to just pull a car out of the back of your trunk and not do anything and think you're going to win. But I feel if we were racing in the perfect world, to me we would be racing outdoors, and the sun would be shining, the track would be big.
Birds would be tweeting.
He'd have pretty good traction, and you'd be. To me, that's the best racing, but that's not everybody has that.
Yeah, I certainly didn't. You mentioned AJ Marasco's name earlier. Don't go over to Race City RC Podcast. Our good friend Justin Doyle started a new podcast. Go over there. You can listen to an interview he did with AJ. Race City RC Podcast. Should be everywhere by now. iTunes, Spotify.
All those intrawebs.
All that stuff down there. So,
all
exciting stuff for Justin. Starting his podcast up. Good job, bud.
Yeah, he loves, and he's another guy when I talk to him, he doesn't mind doing the work.
Yeah.
He asked me a lot of detail information, and I try to either know what it is or find out for him. And a lot of people are surprised, I think, because they feel like when Mayfield runs some of these races, they feel like he is doing so many different tricks to go fast. And the reality is I would say that he's doing less than most. And it usually comes from the fact that Spencer's a little different here, but Spencer, if he knows something is really good, he wants to start his very first practice run with that. He's like, tell me whatever we think is going to be the best. Whether we're cutting foams, gluing foams, saucing this, doing that. I'm going to do it all for the very first run because he wants to start with what he feels is the best setup. Whereas like a Mayfield, I'm not going to say he starts off a little more lazy, but it's almost a calculated lazy where he feels like, I want to be able to go somewhere. Like, I think for him, he feels like if I pull out every trick in my book for my very first practice run, where am I going to go? I've already used every trick I have. So if you go out and you run the track and you have used all the tricks in the book and you need to improve, then where do you improve? Whereas I think he feels like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to get a shakedown, I'm going to get a run feeling just without doing any of the tricks, the extra work, and then he goes out, he sees how his stuff feels, he compares his speed with whoever the fastest guy is, and he says, okay, look where I am now by not doing any of the tricks, and now I'm going to build up my speed. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to take one step at a time. I'm going to take one step at a time. I'm going to do this next. And I don't think this is something that he's thought about and it's like a strategy. It's just, to me, it's the strategy that I've picked up on that kind of happens for him. Whereas I think some people, they can't stand not starting off with what they think is the optimum setup. Whereas I think he's like, well, let me just go drive and see how it feels, and then I'll just work from there. He doesn't, and then he works from that point, and then the further and further, or where you feel the pace is from there, then that's where you start your work point. And go, okay, I'm 0.2 of a second off per lap. Okay, now let me start working. And then he's like, okay, little shock rebuild, diff rebuild, little bit of tire help here. Let me go run now. Oh, okay, look at this.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden I'm right on the pace, So then you come back, you say, okay, let me pick a little bit at this area, try a little bit of wing stuff here, try this, and you go out and run again. And pretty soon you're like, now I'm the fastest guy, and now you have some confidence, and now you can play around a little more. Whereas when you start, I think the other way, you kind of work almost backwards, where you start with all these tricks when the track's probably not at its best. That's the other thing to consider. The tracks always get better. So if you start with all your tricks when the track is the worst, and then you're trying to gain speed, you're kind of backwards. So I think that's the way that you got to approach a lot of this stuff. And I think that's where sometimes people get scared, like we were talking about earlier, people get scared online because they know all this stuff and they say, oh, if I don't do this and I don't do that and I don't show up like this, and they like overthink it all.
Yeah.
And when the reality is, if you go out and you drive and you get the laps in and you're consistent and you're pretty good at it, you can claw away at a good result, by doing it a little bit at a time. So it's almost it's more of a methodical approach, and having confidence in your abilities. I think sometimes people they're maybe not real confident in their ability, so they, they're kind of panicking. There's a lot of panic at these races.
Panic.
The other person, I don't remember if I mentioned that he'll do anything it takes. All the work is Jackson Brunson. He's right
by the way.
And he's right in that age range, 18, 19, 20 years old, where you would think these are the guys that don't want to do the work. Oh, these are the millennials or whatever they are. And what the hell is a millennial? What state age range is that? But these guys will bust their ass.
It's 18 to 35.
A 35-year-old is a millennial?
That's what it says here, sir.
Damn. What are the birth years for millennials?
Are born between What? This
says
is wrong. Millennials were born between 1982 and 2002?
The one I got says 1981 to 1996.
What the hell? I guess I can't trust everything that I Google, right?
Generation X, 1965 to 1980. So that's us. We're supposedly Generation X.
How is millennials 82? I don't understand any of this. Now it got me going down these generation rabbit holes here.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. I thought it was like 2000s to like now.
Yeah. Little do you know, somebody's 37 years old and they're still a millennial.
That's strange.
You don't want to do anything. You're a millennial. It's like, man, I'm married and I got 3 kids.
Yeah.
You're one of those millennial kids. I'm 37.
That's strange, yeah. Yeah, I learned something new today.
But yeah, anyway, these kids, they're busting their butt at these races, and they love it. They absolutely love it. So,
yeah. So did we answer Rob's question? I guess so.
Yeah, we kind of did. We kind of we danced around.
Yeah.
We kind of got into it directly. We got into it indirectly.
Sturgill's a good guy.
Yeah, he's one of those good guys out there on the internet. While you're pulling up another question, I'm gonna take a break.
Jason taking a break. In the meantime, I'll remind you guys to head on over to patreon.com/radioimpound. Thank all our patrons for the support that they've given us, and I've been running some contests, giving away some things. I got the WWE 2K19. We're giving away J Concept's hat. And
I'm back.
He's back. All right, well, I didn't finish. How the hell with you guys then?
Now you can continue to give it away.
I'm giving away a vintage Ryan Mayfield autograph tire because I think it's from when he was with the. Maybe this is 2017, so no, he's a Yokomo.
Yeah.
All right, it's not that vintage, I guess. It's a year old. Well, 2 years old.
It's good stuff.
I'll run that probably tomorrow, which is Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
We're giving that away. I found a J Concepts hat, and I was going through some stuff. It's a J Concept fitted hat. Wait a
That's the
minute.
good stuff.
Why does it say Flex Fit, but yet it has sizes on it? Flex Fit stretch. Oh, okay. Stretches from 6 7/8 to 7 1/4. Okay.
Yeah, that hat is about,
It's probably 5 years old, maybe.
I'd say, we've had at least 3 trucker hats now, I believe.
I
Or
like
is it
that
2?
hat. It's a nice hat. Doesn't fit me.
Actually,
So.
Chili laid them all out the other day. He laid them all out on the internet. He had every J
Hey.
Concepts hat
Oh, wow.
we've made. So we'd actually have to reference that.
All right.
Chili, he's going to reference some things.
So, and Jason sent out all those prizes. So if you guys, I know you guys received the prizes already. I got some photos that I posted. But please, if you receive a prize from us, take a photo with it for me. I know some of you guys are camera shy, but it's really good if you take a photo and I can put it up there for you on our Facebook page and prove that we're giving these things away. It really helps.
Really helps.
Yeah. Patreon.com/Radio Impound. Thanks to all the supporters. All right. There you go, Jason. That's my plug. Jason's back from his break, and then we have another question for him.
Yeah.
Let's hit it. Did you see the picture I threw up there on Facebook? It's from that RC. Kirby posted it earlier in our chat. It's the what do they called him? Rad Max.
Brad Max. Yep.
Is that him?
He will be on the podcast too. He's offered to. Yeah, he said he'll be on the podcast.
Oh my god, I didn't know that. I should have saved that for that. That's cool.
Yep.
Oh, this is awesome. Exciting. I didn't know he was still involved.
Well, I don't know that he's involved in RC, but a friend of ours, Dan Wyatt, reached out to him and told him about J Concepts and everything, and talked about the podcast stuff, and the guy said he'd be willing to do it.
Awesome.
So I friended him on Facebook, and
I just got a page. Tell him that like the page. He's gonna probably wonder why is my picture on there now. I'm not on the show yet. I didn't know he was gonna even be on the show. That's exciting news. I'm really excited.
Yeah, he said he would do it.
That's awesome. Wow. All right. This is from good friend John Bolton. With the J Concept Spring Dirt Oval Championships coming up at the Hobbyplex, do you see other manufacturers eyeing this to measure the interest? The dirt oval side is growing. Do you see Associated and Losi taking interest in this market?
I was at when I was at IOCC this year, I kind of mentioned it to Frank Root, and he didn't seem too warm on it yet.
Okay. Wow.
He gets it. He does get it though. He's pretty aware. Everybody sees very similar things. I don't think that we've reached the part where TLR and Associated are making a vehicle yet, specifically for that. I think it's still going to be a little while. But yeah, that's just kind of an assumption on my part. I wish it was, wish it was a little different. But like we talked about before, it's a big commitment. You have to have somebody that is constantly in that genre. And, honestly, I think it might be better off without those guys entering it, to be honest. I think that it's probably doing well and growing. Right now, and it's it's almost better because it's able to kind of grow or exist being a little bit under the radar. And if you start making, the Associateds and TLRs, and these companies start getting involved and they start throwing their best drivers out there, and it's going to kind of ruin it for a lot of people. And the changes will happen faster, and there would be a benefit to, you could get probably a pretty competitive kit out of the box much cheaper. Mm-hmm. But it almost seems like these guys don't really care about that. They're okay with kind of piecing these things together or buying a Custom Works or one of the other vehicles. They're a little more expensive, but they're okay with it. And maybe that's a little bit of a secret to the success, is that when you get everybody jumping in something, there's a big boom and there is a big excitement or a burst, but it kind of wears off because you put all these really good drivers and the teams out there, and the way we do it in some of our other races, and it kind of has an inverse effect over time. Because so I don't know. I'm just saying that I don't think we're to that point yet, which is probably a good thing. It's probably better for it to be a little more, it's not really grassroots, but a little more on the back burner. But what I like about it, when I went to the race and visited, is I do see some potential in some classes like these street stock and these others where the car can still look like a real car. Like you can make a body that's a Mustang or a Camaro or whatever. And that's kind of what people want. They want to race that. And I think that's what's kind of neat about it. I kind of wish that those classes would exist more in RC, because I feel like that's a big gateway for most to want to get involved. Mm-hmm. Like the video I watched the other day, going back to Rad Max, is that video he made called RC Wheels, and I watched the whole thing. Was it last night? Allison is she's saying to me, "What are you watching?"
Yeah,
and
I had that too back then.
I'm like, this is Rad Max.
Yeah, Rad Max. It was awesome.
And but it just goes back again to that. We were just watching the GT stuff. We were watching the Losi GTX video, mm-hmm. and this video. The thing that they all had in common is they were treating you like you didn't know anything, and they were trying to push you a direction that made sense for you. And in that RC, it's called RC Wheels, and yep. And in that video, he's showing you, okay, these are on-road cars, these are off-road cars, these are 10 scale, these are 8 scale, this is quarter scale. And then they're kind of giving you some blind prices on what the different vehicles cost. And right there, it's a great video. And if you look at it from a different perspective, if you look at it as a racer and go, oh, this is stupid. This Rad Max guy's an idiot. Like the way he's dressed. You know what I mean? Like if you're looking at it like a hardcore racer, you're saying this is stupid. I know all this stuff already.
Yeah.
But if you kind of rewind and you look at it from a different perspective and you say, you know what? This guy had to write this video which you look at the credits at the end. Wrote the whole thing.
Oh, was he?
And he acted in it, which is you're acting. You know what I mean? Like he dressed kind of like looked like it's kind of like a cross between like the Fonz and Mad Max.
Yep.
Yeah,
right.
Hey.
No, you're right on that.
Yeah. But that was the role. He played a role, and then he told you what you were missing about not being involved in RC and the different types of vehicles, and that really doesn't exist today. And Traxxas does videos. They've kind of got into a lot. They've gotten a lot more videos lately, but they're showing you more like what the car can do. It's sort of an action video where, when we started our J Concepts, we had the BJ4. Our very first thing was a video. We did a video of the BJ4 running, but we were targeting racers that already knew what was going on, just like they do today. Because we weren't trying to get somebody started with a BJ4. We were basically saying, hey, there was a BJ4 that you could get. But this video with Rad Max, it's an introduction to RC. And that's what we don't have out there, is a lot of these introduction things. And and they were trying to do that back then. So they were pretty forward thinking from that standpoint, doing these types of videos and things, because they were reaching out. Now they talk about how there's this chatter about this RCGP series in RC where they are talking about how they're going to introduce RC to the masses, or whatever they're supposed to be doing. And it's like, all you got to do is have a Rad Max video on YouTube. You're introducing RC to the mass. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they did.
Yeah.
It's like, we're not going to be on ESPN overnight.
No.
There's other ways you can do this without having to introduce RC racing. It's not that there's not people involved in RC. It's the racing is the niche part. That's the other thing people don't understand, is if you had to measure all the RC car sales in total, like every kind of RC vehicle there is, if you measured that, there's a lot of RC action. But the niche is actually racing it, and it always has been. So it's not that people don't realize some of these things exist. It's that they don't want to race it or have the dedication like the people we were talking about before. That's the difference. We could make things as an industry to just promote it, and we don't have to make these wild trips and race series between manufacturers in the Philippines to do it. We can do it on a much different level and have even more success. That's what I think. But what was the question again?
I don't know.
Where did we start with this?
I have no idea.
There was a
J Concept Spring Dirt Oval Championship.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah,
that?
we were. Yeah, so that's kind of where we were kind of running around that. But you know what? In that Rad Max video, there's dirt oval racing on that video. So there's dirt oval, there's off road, there's on road,
Drags
cars,
sprint car, everything.
Everything
it's
is on that video.
Everything, 8 scale.
Yeah.
Hell, this might even be 5th scale here.
Yeah, so they were introducing you to everything. They were giving you a price breakdown, where to go. Like today, you would cater this a little bit differently because of the vehicles we have today. Are a little bit different, but in general, they were spot on with those type of videos, and I think they had a big draw back then. And in that video, it wasn't about the winners and losers. The video was about getting involved and what fits you, and comparisons to real vehicles too. They did a lot of that. NASCAR, and they showed Lake Whippoorwill on that video.
Yeah, absolutely. Quarter
so,
scales here.
Yeah, which those things looked like crap. That buggy, I wanted that thing so bad in the magazine. I think it's called a Reiko.
Okay.
The Jackrabbit was the name of that car.
Yeah, here it is.
The Jackrabbit. It looks so cool because in the magazine, the guy, I think the guy that was part of the company, he was kneeling down next to the car, and you're like, dude, this thing's huge. This is the coolest.
Yeah.
And when you watch them on video, man, they suck.
There it is, the Jackrabbit.
Yep.
Looks like me driving around the track. Damn.
Okay. What was our next question?
So we'll stay with the dirt oval.
Mm-hmm.
How close is J Concepts to developing a dirt oval specific tire?
Dirt oval specific tire. We've talked about this a little bit. I think we have a tire we're doing that's almost ready to go. We've done a little bit of running with it. We did a little bit of driving with it at the Chili Bowl. It's called the tire's called the Sprinters, and it's kind of the tire is a mix between the tire that we made called the Reflex, which we've had for 10 scale and 8 scale, and we've changed the outer pins a little bit in the back or on the sides, so they're a little more sprint car-esque, I guess you could say. There was also a tire in the 90s that Losi had called the Sprints, and they had sort of those angled pins on the outside, but ours is a little bit like that.
Putting on the Sprints.
Yep. But these are the Sprinters. But really, what we did is
I see what you did there. You added an R. Good job.
And these are killer off-road tires.
Okay.
So they're not only are they, I think, going to work well on any kind of dirt off-road track for like outdoor type racing, but I think they're going to be very popular in oval too, because they have a good look that looks a little oval-esque, sprint-esque, but they're also high performance. So there are tires out there that are completely dedicated to oval, dirt oval, but I don't know that the performance is that amazing, because the closer you start to make them look like the real tires, I don't think they work quite as well. Depending on the surface. Of course, if you have a ton of grip to begin with, it's the tire, there's a little less pressure on the tire, but in this situation, this is more of like when the track is loose, this kind of tire. That's what the one we're making. Sure. So we'll see how it goes. I know they're going to be killer performance-wise, and see how they fit in with the different crowds. And obviously we're not afraid to experiment a little bit and cater to a certain area, but we needed to fill a couple holes in the lineup, and it's going to enable us to remove a couple 10 scale pin tires from the lineup, because this one is going to really almost take the place of 3 other tires we have.
Oh, wow.
So I think from that standpoint, it's going to be a really good performer, and I think it's going to work well in the oval as well. Of course, if the track is really mature in terms of it's grooved up and you're it's difficult because what I noticed at the Chili Bowl is the guys just wanted to run what was the best tire. It was kind of had the Spencer situation, right, where he's like, just give me whatever's the best.
Right.
That was my impression of running dirt oval at the Chili Bowl with the guys because we did testing there, and the guys we tested with, they weren't really concerned about it being realistic or the one that looked most like the dirt oval tire. They just wanted whatever the best tire was. So it was like, it's like I could have walked up and said, hey, look at this tire. It looks super cool. It looks just like the real thing. They'd be just like, all right, well, let's try it. They'd go out there and drive and be like, oh, I like the other ones better. It's like, well, these are our race tires.
Right.
We're running ellipses in the rear and dirt webs in the front. And they're like, yeah, that's what I like the best. And you're like, okay, well, that's our race. That's like our two-wheel buggy race setup. And they're like, yeah, that works the best. So that was my impression of the test is there's two different ways to go. Is you want to go all-out performance, you're going to run a race tire.
Mm-hmm.
If you want it to look like the real thing, you're going to sacrifice a little bit for the look. And I don't think – so you have to kind of go one way or another, and it depends on – how, because regionally everyone has a little bit of different dirt oval rules on what tire they can use and so forth. So, yeah, we learned a lot there at the Chili Bowl. We tried to incorporate it into these tires, along with our off-road stuff that we needed to fill some holes. We got some body stuff in the works, so we kind of hope that for our race there in Omaha that we can show some of these things and which is a Spring Dirt Oval Nationals, which is in Omaha.
Omaha.
Get the date right. Yeah, May 24th through 26th. So we're going to show some things there. We're going to have some body stuff. Of course, we'll be able to show these tires. But the tire we're going to use at that race is more like a 10 scale off-road race tire. We're going to run ellipses on the rear, dirt webs in the front. We're going to run dirt webs on short course, and so we're going to run off-road clay compound race tires for the control tire, but we'll also show these new tires that we have as well.
That's exciting.
I'm excited.
Yeah. All right, Pete Phillips asks, the Hobby Action Raceway and SDRC guys have made some moves to change up their stock classes. Do you agree that 17.5 is too fast for a stock class? Do you think this could be a result of a big National Series races having a 21.5 class?
Well, it's 100% because of that. Yeah, I think they saw some success that we started to. I don't want to give our series all the credit, I guess, because in on-road they had tried some 21.5 racing in on-road first, and then they did a 21.5 class at the IOCC 2017. So. But then this year we started 21.5 on our series for the off-road indoor national series and the national carpet and turf series. We're doing a 21.5 class, but that's where the interest. Once we did that, I felt like Hobby Action ran a 21.5 class at their big race. Desert Classic, and then I felt like these other tracks are adopting the 21.5 now as the motor for the entry-level class, and I think that it is good. We talked earlier when we were talking about tire prep and the amount of work and all the type of stuff where I've kind of tried to adjust my line of thinking a little bit with this motor stuff because my mindset is stock racing is stupid. That's my normal mindset is I don't like 17.5. I don't like 21.5. I think it's just all ridiculous. Like I just think modified is really just everyone should just race modified, but it should be separated into different skill levels,
Absolutely.
let's say. But I've recognized and realized over a period of time that I can't, whatever I think doesn't really matter. It's what everyone else likes. And if 17.5 racing is what people like to do, then that's what we're going to do. We're going to run that on our races, and we're going to run that at every race that we go to. So, I've had to learn to adjust that there's going to be a 17.5 class, whether I like it or not. And then, what I started noticing was the part that I didn't like. After I adjusted to, okay, the fact that we're going to have a 17.5, we're going to have modified, that's just the way it is. The part that I started noticing was too many people kind of laying back and still running 17.5, even though that they shouldn't really be in that class. And there's a number of reasons. Everyone's kind of got their guys that they want to kind of hide in those classes to get these wins, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever the race may be, say it's a national, say it's a desert classic, or whatever the case may be, every manufacturer is a little, I guess, guilty of having guys that run these classes. They're not paying for them to run these classes, but they all have, everybody supports people that run classes that they're racing down a little bit. And what I started noticing was there was so much of that, there was no real entry-level class anymore. Because, like you said, back in the day, stock was entry-level. You started there, you moved to mod, you were the man, right?
Yep.
I
moved to mod, but I wasn't the man. But, yeah. I
but now,
what you're saying, right?
But now, it's almost to the point where we have so much action in the 17.5 class that it is loaded with very good drivers, and then modified is actually doesn't have it's not as well attended as 17.5 because so many guys drop down at a larger event or a regional level event because that's the class they run is 17.5. And they feel the most competitive in that class. They're like, oh, I can win this, or I'm going to be in the A main, or I have a shot. And the guys like the motor games. They like the battery games. They like the drivetrain games, and that's fun for them. It kind of goes into that Spencer theory where if you want to do the work, you need to be able to do the work, and then you're racing. That's the Spencer theory, right?
The Patriot way, right?
So that's the 17.5 class. You got to do the work. You got to get your batteries. You got to get your motor programmed. You got to have your car in order, and then almost like in that class, like driving is the last thing. Even though in the end the best guy is the combination of all of it is the guy that wins, but there's more things to worry about and work on. Whereas modified, it's just kind of cut and dry. Like it's like, hey, I got the fastest motor already I can drive. I am what I am. I can't change my drivetrain. I can't change my charging techniques. I am what I am out here, and you either like it or you don't. Right. You're either accepting it or you're not. And I think that's what 17.5 is. It gives you hope with these different things. So anyway, what I saw is so many good drivers running 17.5 is I was like, we don't really have a good entry-level class anymore. So we introduced the independent class, which is intended to be no sponsors. And then you're running a 21.5 motor, which comes from our sponsor, Hobby Wing, and Ron Scher. Ron Scher also has Sure Speed, but he's a Hobby Wing rep. He comes to our events, and he brings 40 motors with him. We have a 30 entry limit for 21.5, and everybody gets the same motor when they sign up, and they just have to give it back at the end, and they're all on the same motor. So to me, and this is where I've had to kind of adjust, now we have three classes. We have 21.5 Indy Buggy. We have 17.5 two-wheel buggy, and then we have full-blown modified buggy, which what you're really turning into is two-wheel modified is for your expert pro drivers, guys that are super seasoned and on the edge of amazing. And then you have 17.5, who are the guys that really, I don't want to say that they can't cut it in modified, but they're amazing in stock and they're just good in modified, right? And then 21.5, that's our class where you can get in and the cars are a little slower. You're not competing against the hero guy that decided, has all these sponsors and just is there to take everybody down. That's the theory anyway. So that's why I see these tracks picking up this 21.5 class, and I think it's good. I think it's great for like Pete Phillips and these guys that haven't raced in a while. He could go to that track, run a 21.5, and the car is easier to drive with the low power, and it allows you to learn a little more about everything again with a little slower car. So I think this is going to stick around. I think this is going to be kind of the new wave that's going to be the 2019, and then the 2020 model I think is going to really revolve around having that class available. And the non-sponsored independent I think is key. Keep all of our top level guys out of those classes. Just leave it for the people that are entry level, or we call it as entry level or veteran racers, right? People that have taken, they're older, they took a break, or you know what I mean? Like that's our goal for that class. And I think that it really there's something to that. There is something there. That's the long version.
Jason has a little insight on Associated. Jason, do you think Associated will release a mini truggy with the new B74? Mini truggy? No.
I really don't know. I don't know. I haven't really asked anybody outright that question.
Why do I want a mini truggy? What's going on here?
Well, I think what it is we actually offer that class on our races this year. Right now, Techno is kind of the only full kit form you can get. And they've done very well with it. They're the only one on the market that's a full vehicle, that's a decent price point. So really what it is it's a 10 scale truck, 4-wheel drive.
Okay.
And we talked about this before because I remember when Brad Relfs and I were working on our BJ4 4-wheel drive car, we wanted to make a 4-wheel drive version of that as a truck. We actually looked into it, and people would email us kind of often about wanting a 4-wheel drive truck. But what people don't, well, it's just hard to really say, but they don't realize how much work that is, how much cost there is in that for somebody like us. Now, for Associated, there is those costs, obviously the same, but they have everything else. So for them to do it, I think would be pretty easy, in my opinion. And I think they should have one. If there's a racing class out there, which there is now, the people are racing them. I think that they should have one. Does the B74 convert to that thing perfectly? I don't know. Not really. But I'm sure with some, with their engineering team, I'm sure they could. Because I think, to be honest, that B74 is going to be it's a very high-end race-specific vehicle. Has a lot of adjustments. It has to work in different conditions. And I think a mini Truggy is a little more of a basher vehicle right now. It has to be super durable. That's probably the number one thing. And I think they will have to do it, they'd have to beef up that platform just a little bit to get the same reliability as the Techno one, which, I mean, they're perfectly capable of doing that. But to me, it's a little bit, they're kind of two different things right now. They're not really running in parallel. They're a little bit skewed. But, four-wheel drive buggy, that thing has to be so high performance now to be competitive. And a little mini Truggy is a little more like, it's like half basher, half racer. So I hope they make one. I think I've heard enough people say that they would buy one if they made one. I think that it's reasonable. It's somewhat easy for them to do it now that they have a new platform. So I think people would really kind of be excited about that being available. So
Wow.
I don't know. I've never point blank asked like a Cliff Led or anybody if they're going to. I just know that to me, it seems like a no-brainer.
Jason, will you be covering the second annual King of the Stock Championships at New Red Hobbies?
I don't know what he necessarily means by covering it. I think we're definitely going to have drivers there. I know Brad was just talking about going to the race. Who's works here for us. He races on the weekends, and he is planning on doing it. I'm sure if AJ's in town and these other guys are in town, they'll all end up going. I wouldn't be surprised if Paul wants to go up there and just kind of be with all the guys and maybe race himself, and that'll lure in more of our team. So yeah, I think we're going to be there, and we're going to be supporting it.
Nice.
I mean, New Red. That track's been around a long time now. I want to say they opened in like 03 or 04. And they've had a track longer than most at this point. So I mean, they've struggled a little bit in the last year. I think like a few different tracks have just kind of generating new people. They were traditionally been really good at that. Over the years, they've always had new people getting into racing there in Ocala at New Red, but the last year, for some reason, it hasn't been as good there. I'm not really sure if there's any main reason for that, but usually this stock race kind of kicks some things off for them, so hopefully that ignites some good racing there again. But they run slicks there, so sort of our little Central Florida area, we got New Red, they run slicks on sealed dirt. We got Beachline, they're on AstroTurf. We have Setzers, which is a covered track, but it's clay, but it's also has sugar on it. So it's kind of like a mix between an outdoor and an indoor track. And then we have Dean's, which Dean's has an indoor track that they sometimes run off-road. They run slicks on carpet. And then his outdoor track is more like the traditional outdoor dirt track. And then Lake Park is like a traditional outdoor dirt track. So just looking at those condition tracks, there's a lot of kind of variables. It's hard to go like track to track running the same equipment. So I think that's where New Red's kind of lost out recently is people just not being set up to run slicks or something. I don't know. It just hasn't been generating as many new people, it seems. But hopefully it gets on track. I mean, they've shown over since '03 anyway. They've been generating people. So
yeah. What else we got here? Jason, how do you manage to stay independent, not be acquired by these big companies out there? Huh?
I don't know. No one's ever asked.
Yeah, same here with the podcast. He said same question for Gotti. Yeah, nobody's ever asked. That was the whole plan, though, to sell out and bro down, but hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, isn't that the South Park?
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Nobody wants this wreck.
Yeah, that's a tough thing. There's the fantasy and then there's the reality.
Mm-hmm.
The fantasy is that you think you're doing something so great that somebody wants to give you a ton of money at some point for it. That's the fantasy. The reality is that's not the case. If anybody ever wants one of these businesses, they're not just throwing some random number at you. They're not just saying, "Oh, we'll give you $20 million." Yeah. Sounds good, right? The people doing that type of work or doing those acquisitions, they're smart, right?
They're going to give you what they think it's worth.
Exactly. They're going to be like, "Oh, we know you think it's worth $20 million, but we really think it's worth $100,000."
Right.
That's the reality of the world. Mm-hmm. Sure, there's the Mark Cubans or these guys people that have gotten lucky over the years in the internet. They call them tech companies, tech stocks,
startups. Yep.
Yeah, that a lot of people have been extremely successful, like the Instagrams and all these that got bought by Facebook. Or that's not how this. But that's not. I don't see that happening. That's the fantasy, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't think that's the kind of business that these kind of. That's not the way these businesses are. And if you look over a period of years, as far as I know, when Associated was sold to Thunder Tiger, they didn't walk in and say, "Hey, here's $20 or $50 million." You know what I mean? They said, "Oh, this is what it's worth. This is what you're in. This is what you have in inventory. This is what we think it's worth. This is your building, and okay, here's the number." And whatever it is, I'm sure it was really great, for whoever bought it. And it was still good for the Associated guys, but it's still not the fantasy. It's still the reality. So, of course, then. But yeah, I think that you're always have that out there where it's like people do ask me that sometimes. Would you ever sell, or would you? It's like, well, it just comes down to who is it and how much is it,
Yeah.
But I've never been put in that position. Nobody's ever said, "Hey, I want to buy it." It's like, so I try not to think about that. I try not to think too much about that side of it because it is just a fantasy. I think in reality, because if you think about the reality of it, the only thing you can do is just keep improving and trying to make the name as strong as you can and survive the good times and the bad times, because there's bad times in this too. And I think that's kind of we're in a little bit of a cycle. That's a little bit of a lull, I would say.
Yeah.
in RC. And that's why, Great Plains got, the guy alluded to in his question about Horizon acquiring Great Plains. But they bought the whole thing, I believe, for $23 million. But they bought a company that used to have 700 employees for $23 million. So it's like they got a big chunk of the pie for $23 million. That wasn't that was the reality deal, not the fantasy deal. They got Axial with that acquisition. They got Arma with that acquisition. They got the building that they're in. They got their inventory. They got their their dealers. They got Tower Hobbies. So that was a great move. I felt for them. And it also makes them kind of not the only game in town, but in a way. You have A-Main Hobbies, they're a beast in the retail online sales, but as far as distributors, Horizon now really only has one main competitor, whereas before they were almost like 50-50 with Great Plains. So they were able to get their top competitor in all their brands, all their names they're building, so... And when Thunder Tiger bought Associated, but and then Horizon bought Team Losi back in about 2005.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of those were major fantasy numbers. I mean, they're great, no doubt about it. I mean, it's not like the guys that sold are struggling.
Yeah.
But it's not like, it's like we talk about these sports contracts. It's like it's absolutely insane. I mean, you talk about they signed that baseball guy. What was it, $300 million or something?
Mm-hmm. 400,
and
something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you think about Horizon. I mean, I think it's somewhere around $23 million. They bought a whole company with 700 employees for $23 million, with all these brands and all this inventory. And you're talking about a big operation. And they're going to pay this baseball guy $300 million. That's a fantasy.
Yeah.
It's a kid's game. Getting paid $300 million to play a kid's game.
It's nuts.
Still singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" during the 9th inning stretch or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Seventh inning.
Whatever it is. It's like they're singing kids songs halfway through the event.
What the hell? It's all a good time.
And it's $300 million.
Yeah. Jeez.
It's like, who we kidding here?
Hey, this question just came in from Justin Doyle.
He's like, how do you do these things?
Yeah, how do you do these podcasts? Nah, he's doing just fine. He's on episode 3 now. Justin Doyle, Race City Podcast.
So he's another guy we got to beat to 200 now.
Yeah, we got to make sure. He's on 3. If we don't beat him to 200,
we're hurting.
We're hurting bad. But it's possible he could give us a good race to 200, let me tell you.
He just starts cranking them out.
No doubt.
191, guys.
God damn, we got to hurry up. Jason, record. Justin's catching us. Here you go. Talk to us about the tire situation at 702. What's going on there, Jason? Looks like they did tech or police them somehow. Were people using any kind of sauce?
No, that was just kind of part of the... what we did is... This is what I would consider light tech.
Okay.
We had all the tires there, and it was a control tire, had to be a certain front, a certain rear, and you would purchase them from the hobby shop, and then you would mount them, bring them to the officials, which was the track owner and the employees, and they would look them over, and then they would mark them with a sticker, and then with like a, not really like a signature, but kind of like a line through it. kind of like a mark to say like, okay, this has been inspected and this is the tire that it's supposed to be. Has the correct insert, and they put a sticker on it and drew a teching mark through it. And then when you would go on the track, they had a table prior to the ramp, and they would inspect that it had that sticker on it. So a little bit like the Worlds, how we do it at the Worlds, in terms of a sticker and like sort of a signature line autograph over it to say it's been inspected. The only difference is at the Worlds you have to mount them in tech. So at the Worlds you buy them in tech, you mount them in tech, then they put the sticker on it there, and then you're free to bring them to your pits for that day. But you can't take them to the hotel. And here, this is more of a light tech where it gets marked and inspected before you hit the track. They look that you have the sticker. And from there, it was pretty easy. It actually, a carpet race is probably the easiest because you nobody uses sauce because the tires are super hard. You don't want them to be softer. They're actually better when they're a little harder, crisp, I would say. And so anybody that's saucing off-road tires on carpet just needs to go away. Just go away. Like, just stop.
Dude. Yeah.
Like, just do it. Don't go down that road. Like, people that they just need to just kind of relax.
Yeah.
So all they're doing is making it worse for themselves down the road. The purpose of tire sauce is to attack the rubber and alter the rubber to work better on the surface. That's how it works in dirt and on a slick tire. That's why they use these different methods of heating and different sauce. It's to attacks the rubber and changes it and works better on the dirt. Well, in carpet racing, it's actually the crispness of the tire and it being a little harder actually, I think, is part of what makes it fast. So I don't think the sauce really affects it in the same way. Like, you can't really sauce a carpet tire, in my opinion, at least what I've seen. You can't sauce a carpet tire and go out and start going faster. I just don't think that's not really the direction you really want to go. I'm sure there's guys out there that think it's better because for some reason, they can't accept not ruining the race for everybody. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think in general, make it simple. Mount the tires and go run. And yeah, there was light tech. It worked really well. I'll see if I have a picture of it on my phone from that event. I took some photos while we were doing it, but we've talked about this before. But if you really truly want to have a really rigid tire tech, you have to probably have about 3+ people working a tire tech for an entire weekend. So you would have to have somebody in a rigid situation like a Worlds. You would have to have somebody in tech for all weekend, and all they did is look at tires, mark tires, put them in bags, keep them in a restricted area, only give them to you for your race, on and off, and most of these tracks just don't have the resources to have that many people dedicated to the tires only. Like, that's I think if you're running like a Worlds, I think it makes sense. But when you're doing something like this, the important thing is making sure everybody's on the same thing. The racers, sometimes they can monitor themselves, and I mean, these guys racing each other, between the Mayfields, the Cavaliers, and Spencers and whoever you want to throw in there, Ty Tessman, they're like not going to just noticeably be cheating the tire system at a race like this because there's really way more for them to lose than gain. One thing gets out that one of these guys is a big cheater, and it's just they have to deal with it for months. So,
Can you?
It's like a simple story is like Mayfield tell me at the Reedy race this year. He's like, somebody sends a picture to me, or a picture got sent of Mayfield's 4-wheel drive car from the Reedy race, and it had the fan on the speed control wasn't an Orion fan. It was like a Hobby Wing fan. And so as I told Ryan, I'm like, oh man, I go, somebody send me the photo of your 4-wheel drive car with a Hobby Wing fan on it. And he's like, and he just starts laughing. He goes, I knew I was right. He's like, before I even ran it, he's like, I sent a picture to my Orion team manager and one of the other guys in Orion and said, hey, I blew up my fan on my speed control and I don't have another fan, so I had to put this one on there, and I just Sharpied. But, so he made sure to, tell his people that, hey, I have an Orion speed control, but my fan quit working or broke a blade. All that, those fans always break all the time. Not that one, but all of them. And he's just like, that's all I had. So he before he even did it, he showed and sent the guys, and they're like, okay, cool, thanks for sending it, Yeah. And then you got somebody like trying to turn him in, like a day later, and he's just like, aha, I knew it. I knew somebody would do this to me. So it's kind of like you really have a lot to lose by, like if you're going in and trying to cheat with your tires and stuff, like, everybody will ask everything that, if you get the Testmans there, they will ask you everything they can do. They won't go too far. They'll just say, so we can do all this, but we can't do this. And they'll say, yeah. And then they'll just take it to the, and all these guys, they'll take it to the absolute limit that they can go to. And then that's where it'll stop, because they know if they go too far, somebody's going to say something. And there you have it.
Yeah. All right, we'll close it up here. I've got 2 questions here. This is which arcade game would you rather have in your rec room, NBA Jam or Mortal Kombat 2? For me, definitely NBA Jam, because I sucked at fighting games. NBA Jam. Did you play NBA Jam back in the day? The big heads and yeah, of course. I have a NBA Jam.
What's Mortal Kombat 2? Why not 1? Was there a Mortal Kombat 1?
I wasn't. I wasn't a fan of the series. Like I sucked at fighting games, so I didn't really. I enjoyed watching them, but
I played Mortal Kombat, the stand-up.
I could never do the button combos to, do all the special moves.
Dude, I was the blue and the blue ninja, but the blue and black.
Sub-Zero?
Yeah.
Yep.
Did the slide?
Yeah.
Dude, the slide was like, that was the move, man. Who was really good at that was Paul. He was good at that game. And Street Fighter, he was amazing at those games.
Yeah, he was good at games then, those fighting games.
Yeah, and he said it wasn't at first, though, because I think we might have did this story before where he told me he was going to this arcade by his house to play Street Fighter, and every day this guy was there and would just kick his ass. He said he would put his money through over and over into Street Fighter, and the same guy would just beat his ass all the time. So then he started like putting even more time in with Street Fighter, and he said he got to the point where he had it figured out, and he finally he got it's like a scene from a movie almost, and you you walk in and the guy bullying you, kicking your butt is there, and he said he finally kicked this guy's ass, and he never saw him ever again.
No, that was it. Retired.
Beat him one time, and he said the guy was gone. Never saw him ever again. So I wasn't that good at the fighting games, right? Because I just did the slide every time.
Yeah.
It's like once you figured out my slide.
Yeah, slide right across the screen, like yeah. Yeah, I sucked at it. I bet you Kirby was good at it though.
Yeah,
he seems like something I would be really good at. Mortal Kombat was released in 1992. The first one, and then the second one was released in 93.
Oh, damn.
August 9th,
so it's very possible we were playing too.
Yeah. August 9th, 1992, and then the other one was June 25th, 1993.
I really liked the game, honestly. I had a lot of fun.
Awesome to watch. I sucked at doing and playing that game though. NBA Jam though, I loved it. So
I probably played Mortal Kombat more than I played NBA Jam.
Wow. Man.
The NBA Jam I did play, but I would say that I was probably better at Mortal Kombat than I was at NBA Jam. Like NBA Jam, it was the 2-on-2, right? So you had the big heads, the guys would be on fire. Like when you got hot, like the guy would turn on fire, right?
He's on fire.
Yeah, I don't remember being very good. I remember thinking that the teams were really odd. I'm like, who would pick Horace Grant and Scottie Pippen? Like,
well, those were the two best players on the team.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I mean, Jordan didn't win.
B.J. Armstrong and Horace Grant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know anything at that point about basketball, but I was like, not that I still do. I was like, I'm thinking Jordan and Pippen. People are like,
strange, Jordan.
Like, well, I'm going to be Shaq and Penny.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. NBA Jam. That's where it's at. I have a banner hanging up in my garage. NBA Jam banner. Got from the rental.
Aren't they re-releasing a game kind of like that?
Yeah, they got a bunch of releases.
I actually think that part of the fun, obviously you're in a completely different situation because you play a lot of, games, but I really thought that arcade atmosphere was pretty cool. You go in there with all the different games and,
yeah, hell yeah.
People like the age range of people that were in there, and you could get your drinks, and you could bring drinks in, right? Or no?
Hell yeah, sure.
Yeah. So you'd have your drinks, you'd have your snacks, you'd be freaking playing games. Yeah, that was pretty cool. What I remember playing a lot is we kind of got on a kick for a couple years where we had a track that was in Orlando called Southern Hobbies. They built an indoor track, and Paul used to drive a long ways from. He lived in, we'll just call it Leesburg, but so he would drive there. It took him probably over an hour, but me and my buddy Jeff, we could get there in like 30 or 40 minutes. And so we'd run at this indoor track, but right down the road was a big arcade, like one of those huge ones. So that's where we spent all that time. And this was about 93. Yeah, probably 93. End of 92, into 93. Yep. And then we were going to this arcade playing. Did a lot of the Mortal Kombat. I mean, we'd go in there and just play Mortal Kombat. There was tons of games, but that was the only one. And then we played is it Sprint or Super Sprint?
Super Sprint. Yeah.
Super Sprint. We played that.
That was fun.
Yeah. I like that too. I was really behind a lot of people because I didn't play a lot of the stand-up video games because I was like the Nintendo,
Yeah.
I didn't do a lot of arcades because they didn't have one in where I live. they didn't have like a real arcade, so you had to go to Circle K or a gas station. You'd play like Excite Bike or
Absolutely.
Pac-Man. At like somebody would have Pac-Man. I remember Popeye. Played
Yeah.
Popeye,
Bye-bye.
but yeah. So then we did this arcade, played that Mortal Kombat, and then we did the Super Sprint, which was Iron Man Stewart's Super Sprint, I think, right?
I don't know
That
if
was
it's
the
called
big.
Super Sprint, but Super Sprint was the Indy cars. But
No, Super Sprint's what I'm thinking is the off-road one.
yeah, what was it?
Ivan Stewart's Sprint, and it was like it's basically like little short course trucks
Yeah,
running around a dirt track.
it was Ivan Stewart's Super Off-Road.
Is that what it was called?
Yep.
So Super Off-Road?
Yeah, that came out. Yeah, Super Off-Road. I'll send you a picture. But
So why in the hell did we call it Super Sprint?
that was the Indy cars. There you
Yeah,
go.
but we were playing the off-road one.
I just sent you a photo.
Huh.
It's the same machine. I mean, the 3 steering
Yeah.
wheels. Yeah.
I remember people saying, we need to make an RC track that looks like one of the... I'm like, dude, not... have like mud pits. No.
Oh, man. I sent you a link, and listeners out there should go to this too if you don't know already. Called The Last Gamer on YouTube. It's a dude over in Australia that has one hell of a video game collection, and plus he
Okay.
has an arcade set up in his house. And Jason, you have to watch this video. It's just amazing, this guy's house and his setup. He just had Xavier Woods of WWE go over there, along with AJ Styles. They were over there visiting.
He's like, I want to play.
But he also, and I've been following this guy for some time now on YouTube, and a month ago, he uploaded a video of his RC cars that he liked to collect. So I was like really shocked. I'm like, wow, this dude's into RC cars, because gave no hint that he was into RC cars in these other videos, but boom, right there it is. So I'll put the link in the show on Facebook, show notes, and I'll send you the link too, Jason. So you have 3 things to watch. The stuff I told you to watch about earlier in the week, but you were busy. You have The Last Gamer. You have 2 videos of his to watch. Wait till you see his arcade at his house. It's amazing.
Insane.
So go to YouTube, Last Gamer, give him a sub. And, yeah, there you go. Alright, let's get to this live. I think there was one more here. And then we'll close it on out, episode 190.
Call it a day.
9 more to go after this. Matt Stoltz says this is going to be the raddest podcast of all time, but Matt, I had no idea. I mean, I just posted that photo because Kirby posted the link to that video in our chat today, I think it was, for whatever reason. And I was like, oh man, yeah, Rad Max. And I'm just going to throw him up there today with our episode 190. So, and then Jason drops down earlier in this episode that we may be getting Rad Max on the show. I am jacked up. That's awesome. So, Matt, this is not going to be the raddest podcast of all time. That one will be.
That one will be. Yeah.
Definitely. We should have him on for 200.
That's awesome. That's actually probably a pretty good idea.
Yeah, it is. It is. All right, WrestleMania 35 this weekend. Don't forget to watch, folks. Starts at 7.
Uh-oh.
Get your WWE network up to speed there, Jason.
I think I'm still a member.
Oh, that would be great then. You can watch it.
I'm going to a wedding this weekend.
Oh my God, you mean a funeral? Poor guy. Another good man going down. Where's my taps?
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show. Oh, there was a question there. Are you going to a wedding? That was from Sturchill. Are you going to Cody and... oh, that's Cody? He's getting married?
Yep.
Ah, Cody. Is there anything I could do to stop that?
Oh, pork.
Cody was a good man.
Yeah.
One single man.
Great RC man.
One hell of a racer.
Yep.
Had his
Great
life
engineer.
in front of him.
What a great engineer.
All right.
Very good man.
All right, Cody. Well, guess it's too late to stop it. Well, no, actually, you can stop it, Jason. If anybody objects to this, stand. No, best of luck there, Cody. Hope everything goes well. If it doesn't, I told you so. All right. So you're gonna be wearing the JC jean tux? That's what Sturgill wants to know.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing.
Sturgill. Man. WrestleMania 35. Do you think Kofi? No. Does Kofi deserve to push? Yes. I think it's the right time to push him. And who would turn heel, Big E or Xavier? Going with Xavier. Those are my two questions: video games and wrestling.
Well, at least they're finding the right people.
WrestleMania 35.
He's doing the right thing.
WrestleMania 35. Don't forget to watch it, Jason.
Man, I was watching some wrestling highlights. Hogan's pretty good on his social media. He kind of keeps you up to date on when it's this date, and in history, we did WrestleMania. It was with Andre, and then it was with Macho Man and Ultimate Warrior. Those are the ones that resonate with me because those are the ones I watched, right?
Right. All right, and you got PNB this weekend.
Yeah, I'm not going to be there, but Paul and Thomas, they took off today. They brought 2 racers with them, so they're driving there now.
Sweet.
So yeah, should be a big race as usual. Unfortunately, because of Cody's wedding, a lot of our drivers won't be there.
Man, what a terrible. What's going on there? You think Cody would have said, "Hey, wait a minute here, we can't do this."
Looked at the race schedule a little bit.
Yeah, what up, man?
Something tells me the girls don't look at the race schedule when they're deciding when.
Damn, we already know who wears the pants in that family.
So, no Mayfield, no Cavallari, no Spencer.
Wow.
Nice run, Tebow. Good job, Jared. And Joe Bornhorst. Thanks for going. That's not really fair to our other drivers, but, Jared is one of the best drivers ever, and Joe Bornhorst is one of the best drivers now, so more of a credit to those guys.
All right, well, best of luck to the whole J Concepts crew there at PNB.
Yeah, we do have a lot of racers that are going to be there racing. We got a lot of our guys from Florida. Of course, a couple guys rode with Paul and Thomas, and then we got a lot of guys coming in. And still a big race for our drivers. It's just one of the biggest races in general. So it's just unfortunately Cody's wedding on the same weekend.
Yeah, way to go, Cody. Do I have Jackson Brunson at that race?
You do.
Oh, sweet. Team Rip.
Lee Setzer asked Thomas today how to impress him this weekend, and Thomas told him to get on the podium.
Oh, that would help.
So that's the goal. If you want to impress Thomas and you're not one of the other guys, get on the podium.
Words of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 190, folks.
In the books.
Done. 9 more to go. To Rad Max.
That'll be good.
Yeah.
9 till Rad.
9 to rad. I like that.
Is it technically 9, or is it 8 until rad?
Don't get into math with me. Oh, God.
What are we? Are we on 191 or 190?
We're on 190. This is 190.
So we got 9 more.
Yeah.
192,
Oh wait, no,
93,
wait, that would make it
9 more is so
990.
after 9 is rad max is 200.
Yeah, after 9, so 10.
So yeah, but once you're on that number, does that count? I don't know.
I don't know. On that note, I'm closing this out before I embarrass myself anymore.
I hear you.